Today we're going to talk about a restaurant in New York City, 11 Madison Park, and the two kind of strange ideas that took it from a pretty standard French restaurant to be named the best restaurant in the entire world.
I mean, just think about that for a second. We spend most of our lives trying to avoid change, and we definitely try to avoid conflict. But what if leaning into them, actually embracing them, was the real secret to success?
Well, for the co-owners of 11 Madison Park, restaurateur Guidara and chef Daniel Humm, this wasn't just some philosophical question. Nope, it was their actual playbook. They took these two things that scare most of us and made them the very core of their culture, and it took them all the way to the top.
So this really breaks down their entire worldview. You know, where most people see a problem, they saw possibility. Instead of being afraid of change, they called it endless reinvention. And instead of running from conflict, they called it embracing tension. So let's dig into what each of those really means, starting with that first pillar.
Okay, so pillar one, endless reinvention. And this wasn't just some catchy motto they put on a poster. It became their obsession. And it all started with one very strange line in a restaurant review.
Right? Imagine you pour your soul into your restaurant, and a critic writes, "That. More Miles Davis? What does that even mean?" It would have been so easy to just dismiss it as nonsense, but Guidara and Humm got curious. They thought, okay, what is she actually trying to tell us?
So they started studying the life of Miles Davis, and they realized, oh, this guy was the absolute master of reinvention. He never stood still. And that spark of an idea led them to create a whole new mission for the restaurant, built around these guiding words. And the most important one of them all, the one that really became their mantra, was that last one, a total commitment to endless reinvention.
And this wasn't just talk. The change was real, and it was dramatic. See, before, they were basically playing the part. They were doing everything they thought a fancy four-star restaurant should do. But after the Miles Davis revelation, they started building the restaurant that they actually wanted. So they got rid of the stuffy dress code, they sold off the expensive French plates, and they started a journey to be truly authentic, not just proper.
But here's the catch with constant reinvention. It's super risky, and not every swing is a home run. After one really ambitious menu change, the biggest critic in the country, Pete Wells from the New York Times, wrote this absolutely brutal line. I mean, ouch. That's a devastating blow. But even after getting completely roasted in public, they didn't back down. They didn't stop reinventing. They realized that they had a choice. They could live in the fear of what a critic might write, or they could live in the hope of what they might create. And they chose hope.
And that philosophy, that choice to bet on hope instead of fear, well, it paid off, big time. In 2017, 11 Madison Park was officially named the #1 restaurant in the entire world. They'd done it. They were at the absolute pinnacle.
So what do you do when you get to the very, very top? You'd think you'd just try to hang on, right? Not them. Their next move was to shut the whole place down for a massive renovation. They literally tore down the #1 restaurant in the world so they could start over. Now that is what endless reinvention looks like.
So all of that change, it's not always smooth sailing, right? It creates friction. And that brings us to their second pillar, because for Guidara and Humm, that friction, what they called tension, wasn't a bug, it was a feature.
They figured out that their best work, their most creative ideas, didn't happen when they were just nodding along in agreement. No, the real magic happened in that space between their different points of view, as long as they could work through it in a healthy way.
I just love this analogy they use. Tension is like waves for a surfer. If you don't know how to handle them, yeah, they're going to crush you. But if you learn how to ride them, they're the very thing that moves you forward. You actually need them. And for them, the source of those waves came from the fact that they were just fundamentally different. Humm came from this world of super rigid, chef-focused, perfect plate of food excellence. Guidara was all about warm, casual, make you feel at home hospitality. They disagreed all the time, but that constant push and pull is exactly what made the restaurant so special.
So how did they ride those waves without wiping out? Well, they had a framework. Step 1, take the emotion out of it. Turn a heated argument into a calm conversation. Step 2, always find the common ground. Remind themselves that they both wanted the same thing in the end, to make the restaurant great. And step 3, which is great advice for anyone really, never go to bed angry. They promised each other they'd stick it out and solve the problem no matter how long it took.
Okay, so you have these two big ideas, endless reinvention and embracing tension. How do they actually fit together? Well, they combine into this single powerful and kind of paradoxical idea that's really the big takeaway here.
This is the whole thing right here. We need to change in order to stay the same. What they meant was to stay true to who they were, to be an authentic expression of their vision right now. They had to constantly evolve. Authenticity isn't some fixed destination you arrive at. It's something you have to keep rediscovering.
And that kind of leaves us with a question. This story isn't just about a fancy restaurant. It's about a whole mindset. It's a challenge, really. It asks us to look at the things we're usually afraid of, change, conflict, failure, and to ask ourselves, what if those aren't roadblocks? What if they're actually the waves we need to catch?